Welcome to Real Estate 101, topics designed to help you navigate your way through the buying and selling process. Today's topic is multiple representation, when you have one realtor representing the interests of both the seller, who has the listed property with the realtor, and the buyer, who has decided to buy that property. Multiple representation is different from single representation, where one realtor represents the buyer and the other realtor represents the seller. By the very nature of this process, single representation tends to be adversarial, where you have two realtors sparring to get the best deal for the respective client. The buyer's realtor wants to get the lowest price, and the seller's realtor wants to get the highest price, often resulting in one winner and one loser. A realtor in a multiple representation scenario becomes more of a mediator, bringing the buyer and seller to the table, metaphorically speaking, for a fair deal that works for both parties. When done correctly and by a skilled mediator, the result is win-win. A skilled realtor listens to the needs of both sides. The realtor learns what the seller wants or doesn't want, learns about the property and the area, and researches all facts important to selling the property. This realtor becomes the expert on that property. The realtor then goes through the same process with the buyer and listens and learns what the buyer wants or doesn't want, what issues or concerns the buyer may have, if the buyer is ready, and how much they have to spend. The realtor then comes up with a solution and brings both parties to the table with recommendations to satisfy both needs and to protect both parties. Here's a simple example. The seller wants to be sure that the buyer has the means to purchase his property. On the other hand, the buyer wants to be sure that they have the funds to purchase the property. So the realtor's solution may be to write into the agreement of purchase and sale a condition on financing, solving both needs and in the best interest of the seller as well as the best interest of the buyer. And now we have to talk about price. Remember, this is not an adversarial position. This is a mediation. The realtor is not negotiating on behalf of one to the detriment of the other. The realtor is facilitating between buyer and seller an agreement on price for the value of the property. In order to keep the mediation process fair, unless there's written consent, the realtor cannot tell either the buyer or the seller what price to put on an offer. The realtor cannot tell the buyer what price the seller is willing to accept, nor tell the seller what price a buyer is willing to pay. The realtor cannot tell either party the motivation for buying or selling. And finally, the realtor cannot disclose to the buyer anything about any other offer. Even the most complicated deal, when done correctly and the realtor is a skilled mediator, there's no favoritism and conflict will be avoided. Ultimately, both seller and buyer will be happy. There are a few other things you need to know about multiple representation. It pertains to all realtors in any one brokerage, not just the listing realtor. Sellers and buyers alike agree to the possibility of multiple representation in every representation agreement. When two buyers are represented by the same brokerage and offering on the same property, this is also considered multiple representation. When a multiple representation situation arises, both parties must consent in writing. The realtor must work in the best interest of both the seller and the best interest of the buyer. There's always the chance that any buyer representative may show and sell you one of their own brokerage's properties, which will put you into a multiple representation situation. Finally, multiple representation is an acceptable practice. If you absolutely want to avoid multiple representation, here are a few tips. Don't call the listing realtor or any other realtor in that brokerage. Have your chosen realtor show you the property and complete the process with you. Be sure your realtor has knowledge of the area and has researched the property. Tell your realtor up front that you don't want to be in a multiple representation situation and cross off the multiple representation clauses in any agreement you sign. Lastly, be prepared for a more adversarial process. Thank you for listening. I'm Kathy Demoline with Remax Grey Bruce Realty on the beautiful Bruce Peninsula. And here's the fine print.